I Ching 17. Following. The judgment. Following has supreme success. Being firmly correct furthers and is without blame. The cosmic meaning of this hexagram, as given by the sage, is a person's following of his inner truth as the standard for everything he does. Inner truth is our memory of what cosmic harmony feels like. Subjecting the outer reality to our feelings of inner truth prompts us to respond in the correct way to every situation and leads to the supreme success mentioned here. When we follow our inner truth in this way, we remain united with the cosmic whole. The cosmic principle of following one's inner truth contrasts with the idea of following as defined by the collective ego. It defines following as serving its standards and values in order to one day be one of its leaders. This puts up a flattering goal of one day being free of servitude that lures the individual into accepting servitude. The irony of this is that if a person ever does become a leader within the system, he is all the more bound to uphold the system that has elevated him. Following one's inner truth requires that the person divest himself of seeing his rational and imaging minds as more important than his feelings. When these two minds rule the personality, it is a sign that their functions have been usurped by the ego and made to serve its purposes. It has captured them through the flattery that they are superior to the other functions of the personality. Once a person recognizes the ego's flattering deception, he can say the inner no to the idea that his feelings are unimportant. Being firm and correct refers to standing up to the pressures of the ego's flattery that the measure of one's success is to be recognized by society as a ruler or leader of others or the one who controls things. Making the effort to find and rid himself of the seed phrases that drive a person to fit say this again. Making the effort to find and rid himself of the seed phrases that drive a person to fit into the collective ego system extinguishes the fate that has been created through following its standards. This removes all cause for blame. A person can receive this hexagram when he has been following a rational approach to life, and thereby created a fate. To solve the problem created by his fate, he has been searching through conventional ideas for the answer, in the assumption that the problem can be solved mechanically. The person who follows this approach needs to realize that his mechanical view of things is the cause of his problem because it dismisses the existence of the consciousness that is inherent in all things, and thus is in conflict with the nature of the cosmos. To resolve his problem, he needs to recognize and respect his consciousness. Before he can do that, however, he must first rid himself of the idea that everything is a matter of mechanics. This hexagram is also about allowing the ambition to be something, as in to be the best, the richest, the most exclusive, the highest, the toughest, the most daring, the most brilliant. Or it can be spiritual ambition to be the wisest, most modest, most persevering, most ascetic, the strictest, purest, most noble, gentle, forgiving, brave, sacrificing, and heroic. All of these ambitions are put up by the collective ego to draw into its web those who, during childhood, were taught to think of themselves as inferior until they could achieve these goals. Following ambition to fulfill these models is referred to in line 2 as clinging to the little boy, who slavishly follows the collective ego's shoulds and musts. The prospect of not being something, in addition to implying that the person will not otherwise exist, creates fear that he will be guilty or covered with shame on behalf of his family. Fear of guilt and shame act as a driving force in the psyche, giving the little boy in him no rest. Due to his incessant ambition, no rest is his fate. Spells connected with this hexagram are those that have been put on your person's inner truth, as in and of yourself you are not enough. Your animal nature is the source of the inferiority you need to overcome. It is man's task to rule the world, and you need to be the best. And if you want to rule the world, you must first learn to serve. They also include phrases that put the feelings down as insignificant, as in, feelings are inferior to thinking, and feelings cannot be relied on. See page 550, Deprogramming Procedure. Here are the lines. Line 1. The standard of what one follows needs to be changed. Being firmly correct brings good fortune. To go out of the door in company produces deeds. The standard of what one follows needs to be changed refers to recognizing the correct way to approach a problem. By asking for the sage's guidance to understanding its inner truth before taking action outwardly. Routinely handling problems in this way brings good fortune, for it engages the helpers, which is the meaning of to go out the door in company produces deeds. Receiving this line indicates that a spell is involved that prevents a person from responding from his inner truth. One kind of spell addressed by this line is caused by a hidden fear internalized in childhood during the formation of the ego. The phrase is, you need to be seen, or you need to be heard, which creates an inner demand to act outwardly to get what is needed. Behind that is the fear that if he is not seen or heard, his needs will not be met, and in fact, he will cease to exist. This spell pushes the person to take matters into his own hands, regardless of the circumstances. It is accompanied at times by a reverse spell that forbids that he do the very things the first spell commands him to do. This spell constitutes a double bind or lock in the psyche that paralyzes his ability to meet situations from his inner truth. A minor example of this is stuttering, which has its roots in phrases spoken to a child such as, "You shouldn't say anything unless you have something important to say," and, "To be polite, you must not leave people just hanging there in silence." In another kind of situation, unseen factors such as a spell put on a person that he is that way may be the reason for his misbehavior. In this case, the spell needs to be removed. In another situation, a person may be moved by the cosmos to respond to another's ego display without his having any intention to do so. In this case, the response is a cosmic correction, judged purely on the basis of its appearance. The response might be considered improper because it is unconventional or does not fit the definition of correct behavior given by the collective ego, even though his response resonates with the inner truth of everyone present. These are situations which can be understood only by consulting the sage to discover their inner truth. Another standard that may need to be changed has to do with a person's ritualistic approach to things. Rituals, by their nature, are contrary to the cosmic principle of the equality of all aspects of the cosmic whole, because they set up something as sacred and thus surround it with an aura of being special, untouchable, and awesome. Seeing things as specially endowed is an activity of the imagination by which a person projects false images upon the thing he wants to see as sacred, and thus puts a spell on it. Just going to highlight that one. It actually coincides with my Substack about crystals. He no longer relates to the thing itself from his inner truth, but to the image he has created of it. The effect of ritual is to erect a distance between the person and the thing he ritualizes, whereby he sees himself as small and insignificant, and the thing ritualized as great and unapproachable. This also contradicts the cosmic principle of simplicity and compromises the dignity of the individual who does it. Receiving this line may be calling the person's attention to his approaching the sage or the helpers in a ritualistic way. This is precisely what the collective ego wants, in order to keep him at distance from them. Line 2. If one clings to the little boy, one loses the strong man. Here, the strong man refers to the element in the psyche that watches over the border between the conscious mind and those aspects of the psyche that have been repressed into the subconscious. To keep him healthy, a person needs to listen to the warning feelings that come from his guardian element in his psyche, as when another encroaches into his inner space in an attempt to control him. He needs to say the inner and the outer no to let the other know that any discussion of the inner contents of his psyche will not be allowed. To cling to the little boy means that he does the opposite. He allows the other to invade his inner space as if he must answer to his parent's authority, failing to say no to encroachment out of fear of creating bad feelings causes real damage to the relationship. There is never harm in saying a correct inner no. A relationship can only be successful if each person respects the other's inner space. Receiving this line can indicate that a seed image is active in the psyche that causes the person to see himself as helpless against encroachment. I like that one. It is a spell that consists of phrases or their corresponding images, such as, "There's nothing I can do about it," "Nobody is there to help me," "Nobody is taking care of me," "I can't lock the door," and phrases formerly said by parents, "You have to tell us everything," implying you have no right to your own space. A related spell is created when an abused child concludes, "Who cares what I feel?" The little boy can also point to the fear of becoming guilty that holds a person back from saying the inner no to inappropriate situations such as insensitive treatment. Behind the fear is some inner pact or commandment that needs to be treated as a poison arrow. The little boy can also represent the dominance of the ego, as when the person listens to its wants, dissatisfaction, impatience, and its claiming to have rights. The ego is also the source of a conveniently hostile view that drives a person to contending and contriving. Line 3. If one follows the strong man, one loses the little boy. Through following, one finds what one seeks. It furthers one to be firmly correct. The strong man here is that element in the psyche that says yes and no to what feels appropriate and what does not. Unfortunately, the conditioning imposed by the collective ego during childhood has greatly diminished most people's ability to hear their inner voice. It becomes ever softer the more it is disregarded, until it is not heard at all. A person's ability to hear this voice, which is the one voice that can guide him correctly through life and keep him in harmony with the cosmos, can be restored by his freeing himself from the spells and poison arrows mentioned in lines 1 and 2. When restored, the strong man in the person's common sense, as this term is explained in the two previous hexagrams, modesty and enthusiasm. Read that line again. When restored, the strong man is the person's common sense, as this term is explained in the two previous hexagrams, modesty and enthusiasm. Receiving this line signals that a person's common sense has been damaged or blocked and needs to be restored. It also indicates that he is taking actions or contemplating actions that are against his common sense. It may also indicate that a spell is present in a person's psyche that is preventing him from being able to say the inner no, This spell may be the result of a threat or traumatic event he experienced in childhood, which had the purpose of depriving him of the ability to say no to authority. This disablement can be undone. See page 531, Saying the Inner No. Line 4. Following creates success. Perseverance brings misfortune. To go one's way with sincerity brings clarity. How could there be blame in this? Here, the cosmic meaning of following is indicated. In particular, it means following one's common sense because it is connected with one's inner truth. Perseverance brings misfortune refers to the fate that is created by persisting in following the standards of the collective ego. To go one's way with sincerity brings clarity refers to consulting the sage to find the inner truth of the situation that is not visible on the surface. How could there be blame in this? Suggests that there is a fear on the part of the person consulting the sage that he will become guilty. Read that line again. How could there be blame in this? Suggests that there is fear on the part of the person consulting the sage that he will become guilty if he does this, because it may require him to give up his favorite beliefs or be disloyal to family, friends, and traditions. He needs to realize that loyalty to anything other than his inner truth is a false loyalty that incurs cosmic blame and creates a fate. He needs to discover, with the help of the sage, the phrases in his inner program that have falsely made him pledge loyalty to institutions of the collective ego and its values. I'll read that line again. He needs to discover, with the help of the sage, the phrases in his inner program that have falsely made him pledge loyalty to institutions of the collective ego and its values. Ridding himself of such phrases and the idea of guilt that keeps those phrases active in his psyche will extinguish his fate. An example is the phrase, "You must always be loyal to your parents or family, friends, country, culture, class, belief." It is important to recognize the threat nature of such phrases, by which the institutions of the collective ego have obscured the existence of cosmic help and presented themselves as the only supportive structures available to the individual. The spells created by such phrases prevent the true and loving relationships that exist by nature between family members, friends, etc. Line 5. Sincere in following the good brings good fortune. Sincerity, as a virtue, is also part of the cosmic principles of harmony. Good fortune is mentioned here because all things that are in harmony with the cosmos bring its blessings and help. As a type of consciousness, sincerity comes from the heart instead of the mind and therefore resonates with the feeling nature of the cosmic consciousness. When combined with gratitude, which is another cosmic principle, the two can temporarily overcome all resistances and devices of the ego, including projections and spells. Remembering to return to sincerity and gratitude is important because doing so gives the person's true self more and more strength against the pressures of the ego while he is undertaking the liberation of his true self. Also, making this effort draws more and more helpers to him. So, help. Say that again. Also, making this effort draws more and more helpers to him see through the ego and its devices. Sincerity, as defined by the collective ego, means following the societal norm and observing its forms. It is mentally contrived sincerity. Line 6. He meets with firm allegiance and is still further bound. The king introduces him to the western mountain. He, in this line, refers to the person who has been freed from a loyalty spell that has bound him to the collective ego. The king refers to the sage that reintroduces him into unity with the cosmic whole, which is here represented by the Western Mountain as a place of harmony. This line informs him that through following the sage and his inner truth, he has left behind the turmoil of the parallel reality where opposites rule. The idea of attaining peace, as presented by the collective ego, involves retreating from the everyday world, spending hours in contemplation or meditation, and engaging in ascetic practices. Such efforts come from spiritual ambition, which possesses a person once he has adopted the flattering self-image of being spiritual or becoming a superior man. The king introduces him can refer to this kind of self-flattery, but also to someone who, through such flattery, has devoted himself to becoming the best scholar, athlete, competitor, etc., as mentioned in the main text of this hexagram. This line informs him that he has created a fate by following the path that leads to attaining recognition by the collective ego. He can free himself of that fate by ridding himself of the self-image he has adopted and asking the sage for help to restore him to the cosmic whole. That's the end of that hexagram. Here is the beginning of my contemplations of that hexagram. So, what have we got here? First up, what I'd love to say is, hey, welcome to the new epoch of these contemplations. Like I mentioned in the short video, if you haven't seen it already, I am really pumped, super pumped to be able to talk about these. And what's going to show up is a lot of the work that I do, including the body work style of things and the 5 personality patterns. Because if you're new to this, then you may or may not know that I found that the 5 personality patterns really lean into this version of the I Ching very well, because it speaks about common sense. And how I see this and how this has helped me is knowing the scaffolding of the underlying 5 survival patterns are also part of the armoring. I cannot remember which hexagram speaks about armoring in the body or the tissue, the memories in the tissue. I don't know, but it's in there. But it speaks to that. And the 5 personality patterns also indicate that. So for me, combining systems is what I've done really well throughout my life, whether it's right now with AI or right now with the I Ching and the 5 personality patterns, or internal family systems or sexual blueprinting. Combining systems has been a gift of mine to be able to see where the overlap is, and then where you find the gaps, you'll find yourself. But there's a pattern that overlays in all of this, and while you are unique in your own flesh suit, in your own beautiful body, there are also habits which we all carry that are all part of the collective us as humanity that can be mapped, and they are mappable. So the 17, I got this back in the 6th of November, back in 2025, and I got lines 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. And when I got this, when I threw these coins, I'm like, God damn. Because in order to get a line, you need to roll either a 6 or a 9. And then it shows you that, oh, that's the line that you've been indicated to contemplate, right? And I got this is the most lines I've ever had from contemplating a hexagram. And what showed up for me in this, particularly with my journey, is the rigid survival pattern. Some of you that are familiar with the survival patterns will hear the rigid in this. And the rigid survival pattern is about the achievements, okay? It's about referencing other people's rules for success. I don't want to blame other people, but there are people who have a lot of followers, and this I Ching speaks about followers, where when you have a lot of followers, other people assume that that person has some wisdom. That person has the thing. This is part of the social proof, and social proof is part of a collective ego construct where you follow this Pied Piper because they are famous. They have a lot of followers. They're an influencer, okay? And it takes time to be able to connect to that inner truth and be able to say, hey, no, I don't want to follow that anymore. Like for me, I got hugely into like the Tony Robbinsons of the world, the Mark Mansons of the world. Did I say Tony Robbins already? I got into some of the people that are on Gaia TV right now. I got into human design. I got into gene keys. I got into all these systems because I was recommended to get into all these systems, right? But in that fame, in that worship outside of myself, I was outsourcing my internal truth. And it wasn't until I had a look at the rigid survival pattern in particular, and the bind here is that the rigid person wants to be better than all of their competition. So for me, not holding that I am sincere in what I know, but also not trying to aim to be better. And you might see in when I post my marketing on social media, there can be a conflict there where I am pointing out things that are incorrect in other people's work or the blind spots in other people's work. That's the part of me that I know I'm being sincere in that. Like I recommend people look at some of the things that I criticize on online, whether it's religion or gene keys or whatever it is. Go into it, have a look at it. Astrology, do the NLP stuff, do landmark, go and do shadow work, go and do ISTA, go and do all the things. Please, people, go and do all the things. But once you start building up your identity around the structures that have helped you, that's when the collective ego is taken over. That's when you look at the certifications of the things that you've gone and you start, oh, I'm certified in this, therefore I have an authority. No, you don't have the authority in a cosmic sense, you have the authority in a collective ego sense, right? So in that, uh, the concept of man ruling the world, and in the polarity space, in the alpha bro space, where you got to be a king all the time, you got to be a king, you got to lead. No, you don't. No, you don't. Okay, so that's a lie. The phrase is you need to be seen and you need to be heard, which creates an inner demand to act outwardly to get what is needed. Behind that is the fear that if he is not seen or heard, his needs will not be met, and in fact, he will cease to exist. This is a leaving pattern injury. Okay, the double bind of the leaving pattern is do I need to show up or not show up? One foot in my body, one foot out of my body. And for those of you who are in a coaching business or who have a business that requires some form of marketing, the collective ego will pressure you to continuously show up on social media. Got to be putting content out there, put out more content. You know, if you're not putting out 140,000 pieces of content like the Hermoses and Gary V's will tell you that, you know, or the Bronsons. What's his name? I've got a book here. His name, Russell Brunson. You know, Russell Brunson. You're not doing things, you know, you can no one's going to come, no one's going to know who you are. That may or may not be true. You need to listen to your inner truth, okay? And that can be incredibly confusing, especially if you are typing, okay? Because typing doesn't contain your prosody, and I speak about prosody in my Substack. It's your voice. Excuse me, it's who you really are at the core. And when you do the deep work, you can hear the difference between what somebody's typing and who they really are. You can hear the nervousness, the unsuredness in themselves. Not that that's an inherently bad thing, but you can hear when there's something that's not quite in an alignment, right? Because someone can create amazing posts and amazing copy, but then you get into their work and it doesn't land for you. They don't have the tools that you need. They have amazing upfront sales processes where they know how to leverage your past into the future and put themselves in the middle of the solution. I've been trained in that technique. Right? I know how to Trojan horse my way into people's psyches, and it doesn't attract the clients that really benefit from my work. It attracts people that want me to pull them over the line, people who are still outsourcing their truth to other people. I help you expose the truth so you can eventually kill me as the Buddha on your journey. Like the end goal is to separate yourself from me, which is what this is all about, right? This I Ching is all about separating yourself from all these collective ego constructs. I made a Substack towards the middle of December. Made a Substack towards the middle of December talking about crystals and what kills your crystal practice. I recommend go checking that out. There's a video in there too. I go more into the energetics of crystals. But what I find and I didn't mention this in the Substack, probably because it's being revealed to me in this I Ching, is that we put spells upon crystals and false images on crystals that take away our power, right? Oh, this crystal is for protection, therefore I can't protect myself. This crystal's for clarity, therefore I cannot find clarity within myself. All right. That whole Substack is about becoming whole and eradicating your crystals, which I did. I spent thousands of dollars on crystals, and then I started to be whole in myself, and I was questioning, why do I still have these? Why do I still want to try and control the weather or people or protect myself or the deep state or trying to do other things behind the scenes? I don't need to do that stuff anymore, right? It's that erects a distance between your natural resources and what the cosmos wants to give you versus something outside of yourself that's a rock or a crystal or anything. It could be anything. Right? Go check out that Substack. You might get some benefit out of it. To cling to the little boy means that he does the opposite. He allows the other to invade his inner space as if he must answer to his parents' authority. Failing to say no to encroachment out of fear of creating bad feelings causes real damage to the relationship. There is never harm in saying a correct inner no. A relationship can only be successful if each person respects the inner space, the other's inner space. This is critical. I was in a relationship with a woman who was very leaving pattern and very merging. And I would be deep in contemplation about something, and then she would ask me, "What are you thinking? What are you feeling?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. I don't know." But then she would press, and then I'd say something that was it was a loose thought. It was a loose end. I hadn't finished processing it. And then it would just turn into a fight because I'll be thinking about, I want to end the relationship. I hate this. I hate being here. I hate being with you, right? So instead of this allowing myself to say no, allowing myself to say no to her inquiry, leaving pattern people can be invasive when it comes to psychic. They want to penetrate you psychically. And then the merging can also get inside a person's energy as well. So she was very leaving and very merging. So being able to say no is part of your right as a human, okay? The enduring survival pattern is used to having their space invaded. Okay, so this is part of the enduring survival pattern. If you haven't read or checked it out, go and check it out. Space invasion, all right, is the enduring patterns cycle. It tends to be, but doesn't always have to be. Can be an aggressive pattern is trying to invade into a person, right, into the enduring pattern person. The enduring pattern person attracts, when they're unconscious of their pattern, aggressive pattern people into their life. they want all this space, but they keep getting invaded, right? And it's so important that, especially when we're raising kids, to give them their no's, especially when they start developing their willpower around the twos to threes. Because if you don't, then they end up with this cycle of, oh, the bad man's going to come and get me. The truth is out there that are afraid of being invaded or afraid of whatever it is. It's all part of this cycle. It's programmed very early. You can learn to say the inner no to all kinds of systems out there, and you watch as they crumble under the weight of their out of alignment with the cosmic harmony. You watch. And you don't have to do it out of glee. Only do it if it's sincere for you. Like I see people who are familiar with grid work. I mentioned this in the Substack. Who grid work and trying to bring down social constructs by using magical thinking. All right. If it's out of alignment, you will incur the fate. You need to choose what's correct for you, and it comes from feeling in the body. When you can feel an outside system wanting to encroach, wanting to cross the boundary of your no, that's when you say the powerful inner no to it. Okay. He needs to realize that loyalty to anything other than his inner truth is a false loyalty that incurs cosmic blame and creates a fate. How do you know what you are loyal to? How do you know what you are loyal to? It's a feeling. It's a feeling what you are loyal to. And you got to, it that comes from de-armoring the body, because there's areas of your body that you can be numb to. For example, coming up to Christmas, Do you go to family outings out of obligation, or do you genuinely want to be there? Right? Are you loyal to a family that you don't want to be loyal to? Are you loyal to a business that you don't want to be loyal to? Right? All of these things, what you are loyal to, you perform your loyalty to, will incur cosmic blame and creates a fate. And then in that fate, there's a time limit or prison sentence attached to it it'll eventually run out if you persevere in that direction. Right? And it does. Usually, like, the business fails, you get made redundant, somebody passes away, a fight happens, you go no contact, something happens, okay? You must always be loyal to your parents or family, friends, country, culture, class, belief, etc. Right now, if you're a mad culture fan and you have to be loyal to your culture, you will incur a fate. For example, in Australia, it's very culturally acceptable just to drink all the time. If you haven't got a drink in your hand, you're soft. So I don't like drinking all the time. I do not like having alcohol in my system all the time. Right? It's not fun for me. My body goes, "What are you doing? I don't want this. I don't need this. I'm already free. My inhibitions are already, I'm free. I say what I want. I pick my moments." Right? What else do I want to say here? The idea of attaining peace as presented by the collective ego involves retreating from everyday world, spending hours in contemplation or meditation, and engaging in ascetic practices. Such efforts come from spiritual ambition, which possesses a person once he has adopted the flattering self image of being spiritual or becoming a superior man. If you're listening to this, and if you're someone who does a lot of contemplation or meditation, and you hope to become even more spiritual or becoming a superior man, like, you are wasting your life and wasting your energy. It's in relationships, it's in connection that the content appears that you process to become your most truest version of yourself. Spirituality is not this external thing. It's who you are, it's how you live, it's how you speak, it's how you show up, it's your presence. It's your presence. Someone that can meditate for hours on a cushion and then goes out to a group of people and then gets terrified of introducing himself, you're not real. You're fake. You're fake. You're pretending your life. Be real with people. Okay? I see many ascetic practices, including Vipassana, which I think is a joke in the long term. Go do it. Like I say, go and try it all. Go and do it all. Sit ayahuasca. Go do Vipassana. Go do Lama. Go do Ista. Do shadow work till your hands bleed. Right? All you see is shadow. Do it all. Like, go pray to God. Go pray to Allah. Go pray to Buddha. Go to India and Goa. Go get molested by a go and get molested by a guru over there. Give your body over. Just do it all. But at the end of the day, if you can't feel your body, it's all for nothing. Learning how to feel is one of the most important principles of presence and being human. Not adopting these Eastern practices of meditating for hours on end or contemplating and then not executing, because you can become addicted to the insights and the little locking and key things that you imagine or create. Like, oh, that finally makes sense. Yeah, making sense doesn't actually translate into your life. It needs to be brought into the body, which is why when I'm talking to someone or working with someone, it's about what do you see there? I'll see their body go into overwhelm, or they'll express a pattern that is leaving or rigid or enduring or ingressive or merging. I'll see them, their body will shift. But hey, what was that? Just before you said that thing, your body did this. What were you feeling? Oh, this was going on. This thing, has that happened before? Yeah. Oh my God. I've taken this to so many other healers before. I've done this before. It still keeps showing up in my life. Yeah, that's right. It's because there's a piece, a fundamental piece in the scaffolding of your survival pattern that hasn't been had a look at. Right? The combo of the 5 personality patterns in the I Ching is really potent because it works at a metaphysical level, an invisible world level, and a tactile level, like your body, your breath, the spirit of who you are. Breath is spirit, breath is life. And sitting on a cushion by yourself, meditating om and saying mantras is not going to help you in your relationships. Being in relationship is going to help you in your relationships. All right. A high stakes relationship where you fucking love the person, when you can feel that, oh my God, this is the person for me. And all the fears come up. Oh my God, are they going to reject me for this? What's going to happen here? I've got to maintain this image of who I was when we first met. And to be able to discern limerence from true love is an important part of mapping out your love map. And if you don't know how to do that, you won't have love on your map. You'll have a pretense. You'll have some collective ego thing that is on your apps, and some polarity coach that you follow about trad women and being the most feminine or the most masculine, or some attachment theory coach that doesn't understand the underlying principles of the body. It doesn't matter how outwardly secure you feel, security is really tested in a relationship, right? So this is all part of a giant crumbling and rebuilding that I can see that's going to take place in 2026, of being able to trust your inner truth. And to find your inner truth requires a connection to the invisible world as well as your body. If you've loved this, let me know. Like it, share it, subscribe if you haven't already. And I'm deeply grateful for your presence and you witnessing what's being created here. Mad love.